schools in Oxford because they don't want to have to stop driving their children to school. Well, you know, somewhere somebody's got to change their habits, and their children probably would understand the reasons. And in fact, going back to what we were talking about this morning, somebody mentioned the importance of engaging with young people. And I think if you listen to what young people say, they do understand about the climate emergency. They do want to see things change. And I think we can actually persuade parents to see it from their children's point of view. Yeah. So there are lots of things that we can do, I think, to engage with people and to move this agenda forward.
Patsy?
I think we've got an absolute responsibility to try and do that. I mean, if I think, you know, over the next 10 years or so in Hertfordshire, traffic levels are predicted to rise by 15%. Well, you know, we just can't let that, we can't let that happen. The air quality, the impact, the cost of delay, you know, the congestion impacts on everyday life and business. You know, we have to try and tackle this, but we've got to give people options and help that behaviour change.
One for you, I think, David. We've heard quite a bit about net zero transport, but how do broader environmental issues feature in your transport plans?
Well, it's not just the transport plan, of course, it's also the local plan, because developers and the private sector have a role in this as well. So it's really important that in all of these documents, local plan, transport plan, that we articulate exactly what it is that we're expecting, because we don't want to be going back in 5 or 10 years' time and having to retrofit or redo things at great expense. So it's important we get it right now.
So Liz, that's about air quality, it's about transport to schools, it's about health, it's about all sorts.
It covers absolutely everything, and when we said, you know, put climate emergency at the heart of our policies, we mean absolutely everything that we do. It's, you know, the people that deliver social care, for example, and how they get about. All of those things have to be taken into account.
Which is hard because local authorities are not set up to do, they're set up in siloed ways, budgets for this, budget. So how do you, in your position, try and break down those silos?
Well, I think the main thing is that we need policies, new policies that actually do what we say they're going to do, and we're beginning to bring those policies forward. And it covers a wide range of our activities as a local council, everything in fact. I mean, I think one of the things that we definitely do need support on, though, is we do need support from central government on a lot of these plans. It's not just about the money for the infrastructure, it's actually about support on things like building zero carbon housing, which at the moment is really difficult to do, as everybody knows, because we don't have the building regulations to support us in doing that. But if, as Davis said, you know, we're relying on house builders to provide some of the infrastructure, then absolutely we have to be talking to them about how we can deliver a zero carbon future for everybody in the county and beyond. And in fact, you know, everything that we've been talking about today is about how we can change the way that people live their lives. But the thing is, you have to also recognize that, you know, it is going to be difficult for people individually to do things, and we just need to make it easier for them to make those choices.
So I'm smiling. The blue touch page has been lit. I think the questions are coming in here now. Patsy, we can't reach net zero without national road user charging and local demand management interventions similar to Oxford. What's been done in Herts and Swindon?
Oh, that's a tricky question. Well,
I think nothing or something. I don't know.
That doesn't feature in our strategy at the moment. I think I mentioned some of the things that we are looking at. I mean, we've in the Active Travel England assessment, we've come out as a level 2. We're actively working, you know, to up the ante in our LTP5 when that's emerging. We're bringing LC whips forward. The heart really sits at the, you know, I think at the heart, to no pun intended, as part of a long-term growth strategy for Hertfordshire, particularly improving east-west travel. So, you know, there isn't one answer. It's really a patchwork, I think, of things. It's also got to be bespoke to context for our rural and urban areas. So those measures, I think, you know, we've an open mind to it, but I don't think they're, at the moment, I think we've got a list of other things that we want to work through in our planning for Hertfordshire.
David, what about yourself? What are your plans for road user charging in Swindon?
No plans for road user charging in Swindon. Swindon is a car town, and in terms of winning over hearts and minds, at this moment in time, I don't think that would achieve it.
Well, local demand management then?
Yeah, well, which is why we're investing in the improvements to the bus infrastructure in the town centre to give people a good reason to get out of their car and get onto public transport or do active travel. So it's probably more carrot than stick at the moment in Swindon.
Okay. And Liz, are any councils thinking of implementing digital rapid polling to involve people on a regular basis? Virtual democracy is shown to get people engaged.
Well, yes. In fact, one of the things that we initiated when we became the administration was conversations with local residents. We've had a number of what we call Oxfordshire conversations. Some of those are done by survey, which is done digitally, as well as actually in a paper form. But yes, there's much, much more that we want to do in that respect, because we do need to engage with people better than we have in the
And I
past.
suppose what that, the East-West Rail, major investments, and you've talked about things that aren't necessarily universally accepted. I mean, how do you use that kind of thing to introduce those schemes more smoothly?
Well, that's a very good question. I think the main thing that struck me this morning, actually, listening to some of our speakers, is how much needs to be done with our rail network to make it easy for people to use. I think the whole question of train travel pricing is a big issue. How you buy those tickets is a really big issue. There are single places you can go to, but you have to pay an extra fee, things like the train line. I don't want to advertise them, but there's an extra fee attached to it. There has to be a much simpler way of not only buying tickets for rail, but being able to buy a through ticket where you buy a bus ticket that takes you to the train station, that takes you onto your destination and beyond that. All of that needs to be joined up and thought about, and that's where digital comes in.
Okay. David, a question here. How can this region make it much more possible for a 12-year-old to cycle to school safely?
Oh, goodness me. Well, all councils, and certainly my own council, invest and have been investing for quite some time in cycleways, which are away from main roads. So, but obviously they've got to be well lit, they've got to be safe to use at all times of the year, and councils put a lot of focus onto that. Cathy talked about LC whips, and that's part of the programme and plan to ensure that can happen.
Patsy, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'd agree. All of the above, plus training, support, keeping cars away from school, encouraging all the things. I'm sure my colleagues that's happening locally, but I think it's a mixture of things. Again, there's no one solution to try and encourage this.
Okay. Slightly wider question is how do we get closer to transport utopia than dystopia? Is that a positive view on it? I don't know. Do you feel that you're getting more towards a utopia than dystopia?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh. At the moment, actually, no, because we're really we're absolutely in the thick of it at the moment, making changes that are really difficult. And one of the things that we're also experiencing, and I'm sure others are too, is difficulties around bus services. I think that came up this morning as well, didn't it? The fact that the bus services are really overstretched because they haven't got the drivers. They're still suffering from the decline in passenger numbers during COVID. All of that. If we're going to actually get people engaged with the idea of getting out of their cars, we have to have viable alternatives. And at the moment, we're struggling to make that work. So we're trying to reduce traffic in Oxford particularly, because that is the biggest problem there. But that does require buses that will run to time and be efficient. And we want people to come in from outside and park at Park and Rides. We're building a new Park and Ride. That's going to come on stream fairly soon. But it's having the bus services to take people there. So it's a real conundrum at the moment.
Okay. Now there's a point here that says, would EEH or should EEH lead on the development of a Mars app where you can pay for all travel trips? Would that be useful, or should it happen at the local level? Are those sort of big interventions, are they local interventions, David, or are they something that the EEH should get involved in?
I think it does need to be done at scale. I mean, we've seen it work really well in London. Whether it's EEH or whether it's a much larger geography than that, I don't know. But as Liz says, we've got to make it easy for people. And if I use an example, I didn't come here today by train because it's too complicated, it's too many changes, it's too expensive, which is one of the reasons why we need improved connectivity between Swindon and Oxford. So I drove, but that wasn't that easy either. yeah, if we make it easy and affordable for people, then I think they will change.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say, any suggestions? Should I get a taxi back to the station, or should I get the number 70 bus, or is it the 77 bus? I'm coming to that soon, but I'll discuss. Finally, then, just to round things off, because the time is always against us, there's clearly a huge week this week for, with the Chancellor's tax and spending plans tomorrow. What do each of you, Patsy, what do you hope to hear tomorrow?
Oh, I'd like some certainty, and I'd like an end to the bidding process that is using so much of our valuable human capital and capacity. Please let us just get on and have certainty over what we've already bid for and been awarded, and get that delivered. That would be my
David?
hope.
Totally agree with what Patsy's just said. I think added to that is, local authorities' budgets are really stretched at the moment, and we need some resource and flexibility to be able to deliver on these big issues that we've been discussing today.
Finally, what do you want to hear? Perhaps what do you not want to hear tomorrow?
Well, I don't want to hear that they're going to cut some of the money that we're waiting for. That would be pretty bad. But no, just going back to the point that was made about by Patsy and David, I think the other thing I really want, is for government to recognise that if you bid for money that's going to be then put into capital projects, you need revenue to go alongside that to pay for the people who are actually going to do the design work, deliver the whole project, and that's something that I don't think has ever been really acknowledged and needs to be.
Great stuff. Liz, David, Patsy, thank you very much for that excellent panel. Sorry to rush us through that at the end, but round of applause for them. Thank you very much. Right, we're almost bang out of time, so just to wrap up today's conference and just to send us on our way, it gives me pleasure to re-welcome to the stage Councillor Richard Wenham, leader of the Central Bedfordshire Council and chair of EEH, to close us out and to send us on our way. Richard.
Thank you. So thank you, everybody. I'll be very brief because you've done really well to actually stay the course. So I'd firstly like to start by thanking our sponsors once again, particularly Atkins, without which this wouldn't have been possible. I'd like to thank all our speakers and presenters.